did you put these on? Okay.
After I changed everything from Excel to PDF. Well, Justin had to help me.
Camera's on?
Camera's on, ready to go.
Yep, whenever you guys are ready.
Stand with your allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Meeting will be called to order, and the first item is approval of minutes. We've all received copies of these. Any questions, comments, corrections?
I will move to approve as presented.
Jeff approved, moves to approve.
I wasn't here, so I don't know whether I should second it or not.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried unanimously. Approval of the claims. Jeremy?
We have a few claims. First one's Kosciuszko County Treasurer, $66 for spring taxes on property we purchased out in the tech park. Second one, Huntington National Bank, $950 is for ongoing oversight of our bonds, lease rental revenue bonds. I do think that went up. I did talk to Lynn. I think last year it was $750. The fees increased, so now it's $950, so that is an increase from last year. Troyer Group, $13,678 is for the engineering services on North Point Drive. Troyer, $5,262 is for engineering services on our 300 North project. Wessler Engineering, $15,796 is for the Airport Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer Project. American Structure Point, $796.32 is for Anchorage Road. This is 80/20 NDOT project. So this is the first, their contract was approved by NDOT. We got the PO from NDOT about a month and a half ago, so they started. So this is the first claim with that project, and it'll be reimbursed. 80% of it will be reimbursed. 20% will come out of our pocket. The last claim that was added, if you didn't see it, is just a Times Union ad for the bid for North Point Drive. It's the advertisement that went in the paper for the bids.
That was how much?
$142.88.
Jeremy, educate me. Why did we get a tax bill from the county for the tech park?
When we closed on that property, there's always, those taxes are estimated, so you pay estimated taxes, but if anything, if it increases or decreases, what have you, then that's the difference. So from the time that they estimated to the time the taxes came due, there's a $66 difference.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but we still pay taxes to the county even though it's city municipal owned property?
It was part of that property closing, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's just the difference between what was estimated on the closing statement and what the reality was.
Yeah, generally at closing, they prorate the taxes,
Mhm.
and so they basically have given you most of the taxes
Yeah.
for you to pay, even though you're not for profit.
Mhm.
But in this case, the taxes were a bit higher, so you still have to pay it.
Okay. Yeah, you gotta pay your taxes. Thank you.
All right, we've all received copies of these also, had a chance to review them. Do we have any questions? Concerns?
I move to accept all as presented.
I would second.
Been moved and seconded to approve as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried. I think I heard you vote.
Yes. I did.
Okay, new business, housing directions.
So this is our agreement with the senior housing project on Market Street. The original agreement was based on the application to the state housing for funding, which we did get early this year. As part of that agreement, the original agreement, we had anticipated transferring the property we own on Market Street by May 17, 2019. They had contacted me a month ago, and I talked to you a little bit about it last month, waiting on them to get us a letter extending that period. So this is the letter they would like us to approve, extending that transfer until December 31st of 2019. It has more to do about getting all their ducks in a row in the financing than it does about the project itself. Like I said, they've received the funding from the state. The project will start construction, they hope, this year, but they've got to get all their financing in a row and plus deal with some of the other property owners. But fully expect this project to continue to move forward. So it would be my recommendation we give them the extension till December 31st before we transfer that property.
Makes sense to me. They're almost there.
Yep.
You need a motion, Jeremy?
Yes.
I would make a motion to accept housing directions
Second.
request.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried. A&Z contract agreement.
Yes, you have a contract with A&Z for engineering services to design improvements to County Road 150 West and the US 30 intersection. I did send out a map to kind of give you a breakdown of the area that they're going to be looking at in terms of designing road improvements. It's going to extend kind of on both sides of 30 depending on what transpires on the south side. Most of the improvements we've done have been on the north side of what is Sylvia's Crossing, north of US 30, within our tech park and Ivy Tech and Medtronic, so there's a lot of road improvements on that side. But primarily what exists on the south side is still the original county road that's been there for a long time. Traffic, our development's working, all the things that we're doing are working. We've occupied the shell building. We've had a Banner Medical locate out there. We're building the second shell building. Mine on the PVD, their growth, the school being out there. So obviously the traffic's increased. The gas station on the south side, and then some businesses on a long executive drive continue to expand. So all of this has kind of brought forward some issues at that intersection. So we're contracting, or I'm proposing that we contract with A&Z to review the design of that intersection, see what improvements we can make. All of this will have to be in conjunction with the state. They control the intersection and the traffic signals. But there will certainly be some opportunities for some improvements to the efficiency and safety of that intersection, and that's what this contract will do. The idea is that we would work on this throughout the rest of this year and prepare this for next year's project. This year's project, we have 300 North, we have the Airport Industrial Park that's under construction. This would be next year's main project, assuming A, everything works out with the engineering and working with the state, and B, we do not have a cost estimate yet, so until we do the engineering and can get a cost estimate and see where we sit, we'll plan on this being next year's project. If the cost or some additional work needs to go into working with the state, it may delay it a little bit, but right now this is the project we're targeting for next year.
Have we used this firm before?
Yes, they did Husky Trail. They did the boardwalk behind the hospital, part of our greenway as well. years and years ago.
Okay.
They did phase 1 of Market Street as well.
Any other questions?
I move to approve.
Then move to approve.
Well, I can second that.
Mike, seconds. Do we have any further discussion?
Have you given them an idea of what you're kind of looking for, or will they
Yep.
just start with a clean slate?
No, we sat down. I kind of broke down what the issues were and what I'd like to address, so they have a pretty good idea going in what they need to look at. I didn't specifically say this is what we want.
Right.
The MACOG will do some traffic counts for us out there that they'll use as part of their design and engineering to figure out where the traffic's going. We did a traffic counts about a year ago out there when the gas station was going in. So we have a fairly good idea of what's going on there, but obviously we want to keep track of the changes, and that'll all be kind of processed into this design.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, unanimous. Okay. The no access pass-through statement?
Yes, we do this every year. The report I completed about a month ago kind of outlines each budget, each TIF district, project list, the outstanding debt, projects going forward, the amount of funds we have on hand, and the amount of funds we're generating. When we prepare this statement, when we prepare our budgets, we're focusing on the projects that are in that plan list, the funds we have on hand, the funds we're generating, and the outstanding debt we have. If we were to have funds to pass through, then we could, the Redevelopment Commission and Council could at that time decide to pass funds through. If you look at my report or read through my report, you'll notice in each one of those funding TIF districts, I'll go through and break that down, and I'll tell you whether or not there's any TIF to pass through. In each of these TIF districts, and the Eastern TIF District is on here, but when we get to the budgets, you'll notice that's been wrapped into the Northern TIF District, so it will cease to exist in 2020. But I am not recommending that we pass through any TIF districts. If you look at our budgets, all of the projects list that we have, we need the funding that we're receiving to complete those projects and continue the expansion and growth in those districts that we've been successful in doing over the last 10 years. So this letter goes out to all the taxing agencies that are attached to it, basically stating that the Redevelopment Commission will not be passing any TIF through in those districts.
Any questions? Something we, again, as Jeremy said, we do every year.
I move to approve.
Then move to approve the statement.
I'll second.
Mike seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried. Bid acceptance and award for the North Point Drive.
Yes, and you can use this copy. So that you have, as part of your packet, I believe we updated the bid. We did the bid opening on Friday. We only received one bid, which isn't that odd considering the time of year that we're bidding. But this was a project that we submitted for community crossings funding. We were awarded community crossings funding, which is 50% of the match. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. I met with Jeff Beeler about 5 or 6 months ago. when we were talking about projects, and asked him if North Point Drive was one of the roads he had on his project list, and he said yes. At the same time, I had been approached by numerous residents that lived out there, people that walk to the Y, about sidewalks and their kids having to walk on the street to get to school. So we decided at that point we'd like to couple a road project with some sidewalk improvements in that area. We prepared the engineering cost estimate. We submitted for community crossings. We were awarded a 50% match for the road portion of it, and then we are paying for the sidewalk portion. So this is kind of a combination in that the community crossings will pay for 50% of the road portion, which is going to amount to around $211,000, $212,000, somewhere in that range. Jeff, the street department, is putting in $150,000 towards the road, and then we, as a redevelopment commission, are contributing the remaining portion of the $605,000 for the sidewalks and some road improvements as well. So we opened the bid. We only had one bid. The bid was $605,363. If you look on there, you can see the engineer's estimate was a little less than that. It was $586,000. James reviewed the bid packet as well as the cost estimates, and as did Chris Wadner with Troyer. And it is my recommendation that we accept the bid and award the project to Fenn & Brown in the amount of $605,363. As part of community crossings, we have a very short window to execute these projects. If we don't award it, we'll lose the funding to do this road project.
Fenn & Brown has done a tremendous amount of work for us.
Yes, absolutely.
They're local.
Yeah, I'm confident in the contractor. You hate to bid projects this time of year, but unfortunately, the way community crossing fundings work, we weren't awarded until, I think, February, which means that from February to now, we had to get the engineering done and it out to bid, which is a very short window, and then start construction yet this year. So, very short window of time to complete these projects, but they're great. It's money that we get. It's road improvements that we get. That comes from the state, so not complaining about that.
Don't they typically pick up 50% of the sidewalks too?
They pick up 50% of sidewalks if the sidewalks were there. The problem is there's no sidewalks out there.
Okay,
So I knew that going into it, that we were going to pay for the sidewalk portion of it.
okay.
And that's why I met with Jeff and said, hey, I would like to do a sidewalk project here, but I'd like to couple it with a road project. I don't want to tear stuff up and put a sidewalk in, and then you come back through 3 years from now and tear up a road. So we were on the same page. He's contributing money, we're putting money in, the state's putting money in. So in the end, we're going to get a great project that's going to have sidewalk that's going to run all the way from the school all the way up to the YMCA. The kids won't have to walk in the street. It'll be safe, and the road will get reconstructed.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We approve the project for the bid. Any further discussion? Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Carried. Budgets.
I'm going to go through these quickly. So what you have is the budgets that you will be approving in July. I wanted to get them out to you before this meeting, so if you have any questions, you can ask me now. But you also have the remainder of this month to send me any questions or come in and meet with me to discuss the budgets that are proposed for 2020. The big changes this year, going forward for next year, is that there won't be an Eastern TIF district. That TIF district has been brought into the Northern TIF district. So if we, I don't know which one pops up first on your, on the board pack.
271.
Okay.
271.
So we can go with that first. 271 is the one I changed, so I updated that a little bit, and I gave you the explanation earlier, but I'll run through it real quick. And from 2017 to 2019, there was a change in the portion of the tax rate. In 2018, you can see we only brought in 63,000, but going forward, that tax rate's going to bring in closer to 170,000. So I've adjusted that income, which gives us some more money to put in for potential infrastructure projects in 2019. So that was a big change there from what you originally received. With that additional funding revenue for 19 and 20, that gave us some additional funds to put forward towards projects in 2020. And you still have a balance at the end of 2020 of 186,000. So in general, we're going to be rotating that budget to where we'll have anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 on a yearly basis to kind of do some projects. It'll fluctuate depending on the size of project we might do in any given year, but we'll have some funds in that redevelopment general to do some infrastructure projects throughout the city. Is there any questions on that one?
$246.
This is the Technology Park Fund. We're capped at 5 million. You can kind of see where we're at in terms, if you add up, I think we're just shy, or maybe just over $1 million we received since 2013. So we still got roughly a little less than $4 million yet to receive for the life of the Technology Park Fund. The bulk of these funds are going to projects within the technology park and or to fund an incubator with our, much like our cell links agreement, where we are contributing money to a cell links to form that incubation or that startup business for the technology park. I keep it pretty simple. There's 25,000 professional services. The 67,000 is for the OrthoWorks agreement, and then capital outlays. We have $200,000 that we can use for any infrastructure projects within that technology park, which could include future shell buildings. So I mean, really a lot of flexibility in terms of what we do with that money. In general, it's to go towards the technology park, whether it be for something like a cell links, whether it be for a physical building or for pipes, storm, sanitary, as long as it's benefiting that technology park. The revenue on this is a little bit harder to know, so we're doing the best we can. It kind of fluctuates. It's based on jobs, it's based on sales tax and so forth. So all those combined in any given year. Right now, I'm expecting somewhere in the 240,000, but with Patrick Industries coming on board and their employment growing and them doubling the size of the building, it could be more next year. We won't know until we get those funds. Is there any questions on that budget?
Next one's 474.
So the northern TIF's the big one that changes a little bit this year in terms of it'll take in the eastern TIF. So the expected revenue for 19 and 2020 include eastern TIF revenue going forward. So I've included that in here rather than, you won't see it in an eastern TIF budget because it doesn't exist anymore. So our revenue does increase based on where we're at last year. I folded that roughly 400-some thousand into the northern TIF. Our big projects for this year obviously were the 300 North and the Airport Industrial Park, which are under construction. I feel pretty confident and good where we're at with those. The 300 North project bid came in really well. We bid that out early this year. And then the Airport Industrial Park was through the bond issue. And there's $2 million in this year's budget to go towards that project. Right now, we've got a little bit of cushion between the expected cost of that project and that funding. So hopefully we continue to move forward with that project and don't run into a lot of issues. And hopefully we won't spend as much money as we could, depending on any issues would arise within that industrial park. Next year, we're looking at a $3.3 million budget. Most of these are kind of set in stone in terms of our sophomore bond pledge, or the sewage bond pledge, which was part of the sophomore Danic development in the early 90s of $600,000. Sophomore Danic bond expires next year. This will be our final payment on that bond, so $114,400. Wino PVD 1, 280, a little over 280,000. Wino PVD 2, 109,460, and then the Wino PVD bond 3 is 77,325. The Thompson and Thrift bond 121,662. The Airport Industrial Park bond, next year's payment will be 286. That'll be the first year of, well, I think we do have one payment this year, but that'll be the first year that's on the books as part of our bond payments. 150,000 in engineering, 5,000 in property acquisitions. It's just a placeholder for any project. We may have property acquisitions, easements, and things we need to acquire, so I put a little bit of money in there just to hold it, and then we can always transfer money in and out if we need more. The big infrastructure project, $1.5 million that we're setting aside, would be for that County Road 150 US 30 intersection improvement project. That leaves us a year-end balance in 2020 of $1.2 million, but keep in mind we have $2 million in investments. So when you see that $1.2 million, it's actually $3.2 million. We have $2 million on a rotating 12-month. So in any given 6 months, $1 million comes up. We can choose to reinvest that, or if we have projects that we need it for, then we'll put it towards that project. Any questions with that one?
Next one is 472.
So our big project this year, and I've taken it out of this budget. So if you remember from last year, we had the plaza in here, but because in talking to the clerk's department, we were going to process that as a grant, so it doesn't directly show up in the budget. But we did get the $1.6 million, $1,615,000 from regional cities. We're in the process of bidding out the Buffalo Street Plaza project, which is, I think the bids are due June 20th. So that project will be paid out of with those grant funds. Moving forward in 2020, assuming the Buffalo Street project gets bid, accepted, and we're started under construction, we'll have for next year $5,000 in utility services, $15,000 in professional services, $5,000 in property acquisition. Like I said, it's a placeholder. We put money in there. We may or may not use it. If we need more, we'll transfer some money in there. Capital outlays, we were budgeting $250,000 for projects within the redevelopment allocation area, and then the Buffalo Street bond payment of $159,750. If you'll remember correctly, last year was the last year that we paid for the City Hall bond payment. So this year, that rolls off. The Buffalo Street bond comes in line. Next year's budget is estimated at $434,750, which gives us a year-end balance of $356,938. Right now for 19, we do have some additional funding in capital outlays. Not knowing where the Buffalo Street Plaza bid is going to come in at, I did put some money in 2019's budget that we may look to do some things later this year, depending on how the plaza bids come back. There is some money we could look at demolition of the gas station yet this year or for next year that we purchased on 15, as well as potential professional services for the Center Lake Pavilion. So those are just all contingent on this Buffalo Street project, bidding it out, and then starting construction and see where we end up at closer to the end of this year.
Just out of curiosity, is Matthews on schedule with,
Ray met with the contractor out there on site today. I think they're looking at getting prepared to start pouring footers for the first set of townhomes. And his, if you remember correctly, and Mike asked me the same question earlier this week, or last week, sorry, later last week. I believe our agreement was 4 years from the time we completed the Buffalo Street improvement. So if you use early this year or late last year as that, he's got 4 years to start. I think it was 10 million he had to spend. So in the next 4 years, and that could be a mixture. That could be the townhomes. It could be the mixed-use building. But in the next 4 years, he's got to make those investments towards this project.
Jeremy, where does the waterworks property come in to play here?
That's the mixed-use portion of it.
Mixed use, okay. And that will remain city property, or you're hoping to sell that to a developer?
All of it remains city property until they execute their portion of the agreement. So the property that we own will remain ours until they were to start development. So that building particularly, when they would go to start development on that property, then that's when we would transfer those rights, contingent upon them completing X, Y, and Z, and so forth. It's a little bit convoluted, but I've talked to Randy about that, and when we get to that point, we'll have an agreement that we'll have to put in place. It may be transferred after they do X amount, or it may be transferred up front with an agreement that if they fail to complete, it would be transferred back to us. But the details we'll figure out once we get to that point. But yes, everything is still in our ownership until the contractor the developer is good on their end.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one? There's not much to say about the last one. Obviously, the Winona Interurban TIF District is the GACI property. We continue to work towards seeing that property be redeveloped. We do have some funds in there, and this is kind of on a rolling every other year. Obviously, we have $50,000 in the budget for this year. I don't know that we're going to spend that. We looked at some different grant opportunities. They didn't quite pan out. So going forward, it's as if we're budgeting, it's if we're going to spend that money this year. So you don't see it in next year's budget. In total, in that fund, we have roughly somewhere around $75,000. Next year's budget would be roughly around $25,000, but there would be an additional $50,000 sitting there that we could do an additional appropriation for if a project would come up. But in general, we're not generating a lot of revenue. And when you're not generating a lot of revenue, it's hard to get something going. But we'll continue to work in that area and see what opportunities we can create.
after last month's meeting, have you gotten any more interest from the original parties?
No. Like I said before, you have a month to review these, so we're not voting on anything today. So don't hesitate to email or call me or set a meeting if you want to sit down and discuss any of them. These are just for your review and for the next month, and then in July we'll approve the budgets and submit them to the council.
Very good job. Thank you. Okay, is there any other business?
I do not have any at this time.
Mike, anything?
Not that I'm aware of. Do we need to talk about these amortization schedules that are on here?
Those are just for your information.
Okay.
Those are the bonds, so you can see where we're at, when they expire, how much we owe in any given year. And it's all in your, when I do your report, I break it down by 3 or 4 years. So you kind of see a 4-year snapshot in there. That just gives you the whole life of the bond issue.
I'll look at these.
Jeff,
No. Thank you.
Joe?
Just appreciate all the work Jeremy does. You know, that pass-through is a real short, sweet statement, but I think it's representative of all the work and investment the city has, and we back up those bonds with a lot of these funds that are coming through, and that's why there's not much left pass through. So we've got all those bonds backed up. And, you know, these requirements, not only are they Jeremy's job, but they're required by the state. Jeremy, how long has it been that we've had to do the pass-through ordinance? I think they started that, I think in '05 or '06, somewhere around there, so it's been. TIF has come under scrutiny. This reporting is fantastic because I think we're doing all the right things. We're using TIF the way it's designed to be used. And I think the information that we provide shows that projects and with the fiscal responsibility that we're showing. But it's critical that we all understand that the state is obviously scrutinizing TIF districts, and that will continue. And I know Jeremy spends a lot of time just working through the municipal finance portion of these projects. And the TIF requirements are overwhelming, but in our community, thanks to you all and thanks to our council, we're very fortunate that we've got fantastic progress in what we've been doing, and we'll continue with that. So, thank you, Jeremy, and your staff. I know there's a lot of work to be done.
Yes, I concur. Thank you.
Okay,
I have some paper copies of the budgets if you guys want them.
Jeremy, I had a quick question on that 150 West project, or
Yes.
project. Does that go up within the state's right of way? Do they work with us, or do we fund that entire project up to their portion, or how's that work?
We would fund it entirely. Now, the timing might work out because they have a resurface project, I think, in 2020. I think that's when they're going to resurface it. I think they're going from State Road 19 all the way to Center Street. So if we can get our ducks in a row, we may tie in nicely to their resurfacing, assuming we can all figure out what's best and agree, and the state would issue any permits that we would need. I think it might work out to our advantage.
Thank you. The other thing I want to mention on the road projects, Jeff Beeler's done a fantastic job getting these projects ready to go for community crossings because of the tight window that the state imposes on us when these awards are made and the short time frame we have to react. You don't just apply and then have to design the project. Beeler's ready to go. And Jeremy fortunately has that asset to be able to go to Jeff and say, hey, what do we need done? And he's got projects in the pipeline that are ready to go. So we can take advantage of the community crossings funds, which are 50% of the revenue, and that's our cost. So again, Jeff does a great job working together.
Yeah, we're excited to see this project because it just seemed like yesterday we were talking about, and here we are bidding it out. So they usually don't go that fast, but we had some concerned parents, and we wanted to address their issue, and fortunately it worked with Jeff and being able to combine this project all in one, so it worked out nicely.
do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we're adjourned.
All right.
You have 6 minutes.
I do. all these kids have got things to do. You know,
No, it's not, it's not.
that's what
I don't know where that is funding up from, but thank you.
just check it.
All right, thanks.
Jeremy, thanks a lot. Mike,
Yep.
thanks.
Did your sidewalk project out there get completed?
Taxing,
Well, it will, but it's in the ordinance. We were talking before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting,
where'd you get that list
it's
at?
gonna start, yeah.
Oh, the taxing, there's.
Oh, they had started, I thought they had started last year.
Well,